Good evening, friend. We're beginning to run out of tales about me, but still, you seek them out. I cannot help but be touched. What tale do you think they have for you tonight?
Moriden Athluan.
Skyrim was not the only land to benefit from the mighty hands of the Dragonborn. Even the distant island of Solstheim, part of the ancient home of the Dwemer people, was to feel the effects of his passing.
On the roads of Skyrim, Moriden had long been chased and hunted by a cult. This cult served a master whose name had long been lost to legend, the name of Mirak, the first Dragonborn.
Ah, this one. I should have realized.
Seeking only to stop the pursuit of his life, Moriden would travel to Solstheim to seek out this Mirak and silence him forever.
They have that part right, at least.
What he sought was not what he found. Instead, he found an island under siege, a people who moved as in a dream, and a Dedrick lord who pulled the strings as a puppet.
Come now, and hear the tale of Moriden Athluan's time among the Skal, and of the fall of Mirak.
One of the shorter tales about me, but an important one. I learned things on that journey. Things that nobody should ever learn about themselves. Most of what they will tell you, well, better than most of their tales. The truth, though, the truth is not what the bards would have you believe. Six First Seed, 4th Era, 202. Arriving on the glacial drifts around Alftend, I decided that it would be far smarter to scout the area around the ruin before going into it. After all, to my knowledge, I am the only one who has ever entered the main ruin and lived. And I was thorough enough at the time that I'd think I would have found something as out of place as a snow elf artifact. The chances of it being in there, then, was small. Down at the bottom of the chasm nearby, however, was a building that had been closed off by a large sheet of ice. Using my knowledge of fire spells, I pummeled that ice sheet until entry into the building behind it was possible, and was surprised to see that it was an entirely different complex. The interior wasn't large, but I did find a staff on the body of one of the few Falmer here that looks very different in design and style than I've yet seen. It does have some resemblance to Snow Elf architecture I've seen, so this is likely what I'm looking for. Below the Falmer, I also found a large container of some kind, likely where the staff had been before the Falmer pulled it from its confines. Part of me says I should take this to Calcelmo, but I think the better idea might be to head to Solitude and the Temple of the Divines to look into the next lead. I don't want to make the trip into Markarth more than is needed, after all. It may not be Windhelm, and I may be a noble there, but I still don't want to spend any more time there than is needful. I hate being made to run in circles. I inquired about the Dwemer god of Srib at the Temple of the Divines and was led, after one of the sorriest attempts at coercing a bribe I have ever seen, to a book that contained the name and a small amount of information about Srib, along with a scrolled notation in its margins from Calcelmo himself. He already knew about this. Why make me come here and read something he had already gotten information on? This is infuriating. And when I get there tomorrow, I'll be giving him a piece of my mind on the matter. Tonight, though, I have enough to do some work in the museum before leaving in the morning. I just can't believe he'd waste my time like this. 7 First Seed, 4th Era, 202. What turned out to be the final location I needed to visit for this path of destruction that Feralda had set me on was another small barrow high up in the mountains of the Reach called Four Skull Lookout. The place was not normal, or rather the Forsworn there were not normal. They were actually, well, friendly for some reason. Not what I'd learned to expect from them. The only real friction we had was when a bandit tried to kill them, and that one didn't last very long. I placed the book on the pedestal as I had before in the other places, this time using a small shock spell to trigger the transformation. The book changed, but when I tried to read it this time, I had the knowledge to cast a fire spell with a huge area of effect. One that I tried out immediately, of course. The Forsworn there might possibly have been caught in it and burned to ashes instantly. Not that anyone will ever notice, of course. Except the Forsworn. Maybe. And even then, they couldn't tie it to me. Besides which, if that book I read is true, then I just returned them to the nothing from which they came, so that would be a good thing. Back in Markarth, Calcelmo was genuinely surprised by finding out about his own notations. Apparently, he'd made them a long time ago and forgotten about them, though the book those notes indicated was something he had over in his Dwemer museum. I was still a bit disgusted with him, but I let it go. The man is getting on in years, so he's likely forgotten more than most. It might be a minor miracle that he remembers his name some days. I found the book where he recalled it being. Reading it, I was directed to a place called the Sightless Pit, somewhere to the east of Alftend. I wonder how many Dwemer ruins are under those ice sheets. On the way out, I also stole a few items from Calcelmo. Can't have his little museum of his have something that mine doesn't, after all. I may be working for him at the moment, but I have to keep the endgame in mind as well, yes? That is it. I have had it with these cultists. No less than 3 times as I traveled towards Winterhold, I came under attack by a roving band of these madmen. I don't know why they are hunting me apart from my previous speculations, but this has clearly gone too far. I refuse to have what may well be the most peaceful time of my life being ruined by these idiots. When I am done with Calcelmo's errand, I'm getting on the first boat to Solstheim and dealing with this. One of the notes I picked up from them indicated they were to keep me from coming to Solstheim. Well, since you insist on getting in my way, you don't get your wish. All you had to do was leave me alone, and you'd have gotten what you wanted. Now the consequences are on you. Right. Calm. Focus. The Sightless Pit and the Dwemer Paragon Srib. That is where I need to be focused. This cult will wait a little bit longer. The pit was exactly that. Though I found the entrance to the Temple of Srib, I also know I won't be coming out the way I went in. Such a steep descent I've not had, short of falling. I had to deal with no less than 3 centurions and a small number of Dwemer spiders, but nothing that I could not deal with between stealth and my little trick with a lockpick. I did lose 1 lockpick, though. Shame. The results, though, are likely worth it. 2 stasis chambers, similar to the ones that the staff at Alftend had been stored in, contained 2 more artifacts. One, a shield, will be headed straight for the museum. The staff, though, since it is very similar in design to the last one, this, I think, is what Calcelmo will want to take a look at. That leaves only Erkenthand to investigate. Once I get out of this pit, that is. As usual, the Dwemer like their backdoor lifts. Not far beyond the room with the artifacts, there was a lift that took me back to the surface. The cave it emptied into dumped back onto the glacial plains, not far from where the guild way station had been built. Fortunate, as I also had emerged into a blizzard. I made use of the way station, blessing Marasi's forethought, even if this likely wasn't what he'd been thinking when he proposed it. 8 First Seed, 4th Era, 202. The ruin of Erkenthand is fairly extensive, or so it appears from my first look. The bandits who had decided to make it their home were particularly careless, allowing me to basically do as I pleased, which happened to include removing them from life. Or is it adding them to the void? That book really has started to get into my head, hasn't it? Plunging into the ruin proper, it was basically standard Dwemer fare. A dose of automatons, a giant door that needed a key I found over in Alftend, more centurions. Also, one particularly pretty room featuring sunlight and a giant tower. But once the oil from all the broken automatons was sprayed all over it, it lost a lot of its appeal. Further down, there was a display with a statue of what looked to be a snow elf. That of itself was not the thing that grabbed my attention. Instead, I suddenly put together a few things and realized that I was robbing a series of ancient museums. Each of these items I've gathered so far have either been in a display box of some kind, as the 2 staves had been, or on a platform display with a button that caused some kind of voice to speak, presumably in Dwemer, as I couldn't understand it. Not that robbing museums is a problem for me. I've done it twice already. I'm just surprised it took me this long to make the realization. 3 displays I found, but only 2 contained anything. The first, an axe, will join the shield I found at the sightless pit. The second, predictably, was a staff, which means that once I'm out of this ruin, I will be on my way back to Markarth and Calcelmo. There is a detail which I've not mentioned, because at the time I wasn't sure of its import. I still am not, really, but since it has now happened at all 3 locations, it at least should be brought up. All 3 times, as I was leaving, a ghost would appear, accuse me of theft, and try to kill me using ice magics. Additional to that, another ghost, one I've not been able to get a clear look at, has also appeared and tried to get me to follow her. This ghost, a female snow elf I think, had even referred to me by my title of Dovahkiin. Perhaps there is even more to this than I had believed, never mind Calcelmo. He might be brilliant where the Dwemer are concerned, but when it comes to being the center of prophecies and portents, he knows nothing. The ghost that had been leading me around finally turned on me. I'm not sure what it was thinking it was doing, first helping and then doing its level best to eliminate me, but I knew what it was about. 4 times I thought it defeated, only for it to absorb one of the nearby wisps, which I could not seem to touch with any of my weapons. The 5th time, it fell to its knees. It looked up, and of all things, thanked me for helping it. I am confused. But I am also alive, so I'll take that instead. I handed both of the remaining staves over to Calcelmo and received a good deal in the way of cash rewards, as well as a bow he calls Snowblind, another good item for display at the museum. With that project now done, the next stop is Solitude to make one last round of the museum and the new displays. Then I go to Solstheim. There will be oblivion to pay when I get there and find out who these cultists are, and if I find this Mirak they talk about, then I think the conversation will get decidedly ugly. That was odd. As I left Understone Keep, my vision blurred, and I heard a series of chimes not unlike those I hear when a wisp mother is near. Looking around, I could see no one else reacting to the sound, nor did anyone else appear to notice anything unusual at all. The blurring faded, but the chimes, those did not. Every time I looked to the east towards Whiterun or the Rift, they would get louder, then fade out as I looked elsewhere. Not distracting at all. I can only think of one thing to do about it, too, which means I'll attempt to sleep here tonight, then make for Whiterun first. The chimes might lead me somewhere, they might not, but if I can't make them go away, the rest of my life is going to be far more musical than I would like. 9 First Seed, 4th Era, 202. It took hours of riding and backtracking, but it became evident as I moved further east that the Rift was the most likely source of the chimes. As I drew closer to Riften, a thought occurred to me. A suspicion. In time, it proved correct. The same cave that I had been looking at about a week ago now was the source of the chimes, and standing before it was the very same snow elf ghost that had tried to kill me, then thanked me yesterday. I'm not sure where this is going, but, well, at least the cultists haven't followed me into caves yet, and I want this chime gone. I followed the ghost as it led me into the cave. Into the cave, and then to the bottom of a pond that lay inside, and then further down still, to an underwater entrance to... Well, I'd never have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. I had been thinking recently on what the guild would do now that they were done cataloging and detailing the results of the expedition to Erkund. I think I know. A snow elf city almost directly under Fort Greenwall. Who would have thought? They can get started on this while I'm in Solstheim. By the time I get back, with any luck, they'll be hip-deep in new snow elf knowledge, artifacts, and the occasional dirt mound. They'll love every second of it. Assuming they're smart and careful enough. Yes. I have to get back to Solitude immediately to get them moving. Marazi assembled the guild almost as soon as I described what I'd found. They'll be there in a day or two, getting things going. If past dig sites are any indication, they'll need my help there as well, but I have more important things to do. I'll be riding for Dawnstar, where I left the Dev of Eza, and then fly her to Windhelm in the morning. A little ostentatious, of course, but that's part of the point. I want the people of Windhelm to know I have arrived. I want them to know who it is that came on such a large ship that flies through the air as the dove do, and I want that story to be in their minds firmly placed. Because when I come back from Solstheim, I fully intend to be made a Thane here. Call it petty, but I have a few things in mind that I'd love to share with the people here, and they aren't going to like it much. But as a Thane, the only one who can stop me will be the Jarl, and I already knew what he thinks about the racism going on in the city. So, for all those reasons, I'll be gritting my teeth in terror, but the trip on the Aveza will be worth it all the more for it. 10 First Seed, 4th Era, 202. The arrival of the Dev Aveza went as I had hoped. The numbers of faces I saw look up to see the ship as it pulled in next to the Windhelm Bridge, the awe, even the terror on some faces, was all I could have hoped for. Part of me wanted to mount the railings and proclaim my return, to show them all who had come calling, to let them ponder on the idea that a mere Dunmer, one whom they had spat on and reviled, was now one of the the most powerful Mer in the province, if not the Empire. I wanted to. So very, very badly, but somehow I refrained. I will let them do the storytelling. Seeing me leave the ship, knowing who I am, the story will spread and they will know who I am and what they did. When I return to Skyrim, things will change, I think. I went straight to the docks, where I found a transport, the Northern Maiden, moored. This, I have been told, is the only ship that makes the run from Skyrim to Solstheim, and it turned out that report was out of date. The captain was at first adamant about not returning to the island. It seems that he brought a number of men in masks across from the island recently, and he has no memory of the trip itself. That bothers him to no end. When I told him those cultists had come to kill me, that I was heading for the island to shut them down completely and permanently, he paused, and then agreed. I still had to pay the normal fare for the trip. Fair enough. But we left on the tide. Tonight I will be in Raven Rock. And tomorrow I start looking for these cultists and help them fulfill their death wishes. The maiden caught a good wind and made better time than the captain had anticipated. When we reached the docks of Raven Rock, Second Counselor Arano was there to meet the ship. He looked ready to chew rocks, honestly, and that was before he saw me. I was subjected to a stern lecture about how this was not Skyrim, in case I had somehow missed it, and that I would be subject to Morrowind's laws, as if it would be anyone else's. Paranoid, I think, and with a forceful personality to back it up. Right until I asked who Miraak was. I'm not sure if he's acting like he can't remember the name or if it's genuine, but the personality shift was dramatic. He mentioned the name might be connected with something called the Earthstone, but beyond that, he had nothing to add. Still more than I had, but if I'm going to get any information, it's time to do something I don't want to. Chat up the locals. Perhaps our shared heritage will help here somewhat, unlike in Skyrim. Not that I'm counting on it. In fact, I'd almost bet against it. Even so, getting any kind of information on any of the reasons I'm here will be useful. And worst case, I get on the roads and start walking and exploring. Miraak will find me, if need be. If I needed more reminders that I'm not in Skyrim, I got them, as I went up towards what I think will be the local temple. I looked on the statues and the nearby shrines, and I shook my head. Only in Morrowind would you see these three so openly venerated. Mephala, Azura, Boethia. I understand the first two, certainly. With the Morag Tong based out of Morrowind and an accepted part of society, she would have to be openly acknowledged. Azura, of course, is all but an ancestor god. Boethia, I've never really fully understood her presence. Regardless, three major Daedric lords. Fortunately, I'm a champion for all three, so shouldn't have too much trouble with any of their followers. Unless, of course, they decide to back this Miraak person. in which case things are going to go badly for someone. A visit to the Daedric Temple got me something to go off of. The Elder has a problem with their version of the Hall of the Dead, and at first I was thinking that this might be Namira all over again. Fortunately, that's not the case. They have a creature on the island called an ash spawn that is the root of the problem. I took up the job of clearing them out, hoping that doing so might make him willing to talk about other things I needed to know. It worked. I now have several places on the island to look at, most of them related to the remaining missing explorer's tools. Mirak, though, remains a mystery. He recognized the name, but said it was like something from a bad dream, one where he remembered working to build something. Nothing more, however. But if I see a construction project somewhere on the island, then I'll have something to look for. Better than what I had before. I did find some kind of construction project on the outskirts of town, and it gives me shivers that I don't want to think about. Though the people here were about and moving, I had the feeling I was looking at something that was just moving, not actually alive, as though the people I were watching weren't even really awake. That's been true of everyone I've talked to about Mirak as well. They seem to know the name, but always through a dream, and something connected to either a temple or a construction project. The Maiden's captain had said the island was giving him the creeps. I understand what he meant now. Even apart from all else I have seen, I have this feeling of being watched. No matter who I talked to, I got the same story. They know the name, but they don't. A dream is mentioned, perhaps some kind of construction, but nothing more. It's enough to make me have serious concerns about those who live here. It almost could be something from Vermina's domain, but even that doesn't feel right. I'd called Mirak's followers and Skyrim cultists, but at the time it was just a word. The more I'm seeing here, the more I'm thinking it might be closer to true than I'd believed. I've taken a room at the Retching Netch, the one and only corner club here in Raven Rock. In the morning I will leave town and start exploring the island. I've seen some of the dangers already, but I have no doubt that there are even more that I haven't yet. Apart from the standard problem of bandits, part of the Reavers, as I understand it, there isn't much else here that's friendly either. Ash hoppers, ash feeds, ash everything, even just plain ash. It's everywhere. And no wonder, with the Red Mountain still erupting, it fills in everywhere, which is the problem that one Relis Sedaris is running into. He's excavating Kolbjorn Barrow, or trying to. He claims that something called the Relics of Azadal are at the bottom of it, and a lot of money for him when he gets there. I fronted him 1,000 to get diggers to help. He wasn't expecting it, of course, but he'll manage the site. The real question is which one of us will betray the other first, I think. I've already stolen one of the tools he had from his pocket, Schneider's sextant, but that isn't the only thing he has of interest. That pickaxe of his is of a material I've not seen. That and those relics he's looking for would have a nice home in Solitude, I think. If I decide to make it so. My next stop was Fort Frostmoth, where one of the journals has led me to believe there is a hidden storeroom of some kind. It took some time to get inside the building I needed, given the large numbers of ash spawn in the area. Also, some lunatic who thought he was an Imperial holding the fort. Not sure what's going on with that. Finally, I made my entry, cleared out a large number more of the ash spawn, and found the location indicated. It took the remainder of the day and well into the evening hours to clear the blockage, but I found what I came for. Then, sleep. Because this place is horrid and I'm having problems breathing with all of the ash in the air. How do people live here?